Hello, everyone, and welcome to Mind Matters, Navigating Mental Health. I am Mustapha Said Bkayy, a public health student passionate about breaking down mental health barriers and empowering people live healthier and more balanced lives. Thank you for joining me today for our very first episode, Breaking the Stigma: Why Mental Health Matters. In this episode, we will discuss what mental health stigma is, where it comes from, why it is so harmful, and how can we work together to break it. I'll also share some real-world examples and actionable steps you can take to foster open conversations about mental health in your own life. Before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast for weekly episodes. And if you find today's discussion helpful, please share it with someone who might need it. What exactly is mental health stigma? And what are the types of stigma that are out there? Well, mental health stigma refers to the negative attitudes, beliefs, and stereotypes that surround mental illness. It can make people feel ashamed, judged, or isolated for seeking help or even acknowledging their struggles. The type of stigma that we have out there, we have public stigma, negative attitudes from society toward individuals with mental health conditions. Then we have self-stigma. In this case, is when people internalize societal attitudes and feel ashamed of their struggles. And we have institutional stigma, policies or practices that limit opportunities for people with mental health conditions. A simple example is most of them do not have insurance coverage for therapy. And another big example is, for instance now, have you ever heard someone say, just snap out of it, or you are overreacting? Comments like these perpetuate the idea that mental health issues aren't valid or real, making it harder for people to open up. Why is stigma harmful, and what impact does it have on individual and society? The impact on individual is simply when someone feels stigmatized, they are less likely to seek help. Study shows that stigma is one of the biggest barriers to accessing mental health care. Imagine suffering in silence because you are afraid of being judged. And the impact on society. Mental health stigma doesn't just affect individuals, it affects entire communities. When stigma persists, it leads to higher rates of untreated mental illnesses, increased in healthcare costs, and lost productivity in workplaces. Did you know that over 50% of people with mental health conditions don't seek treatment? That's millions of people who could benefit from therapy, medication, or support but feel too ashamed to reach out. How did we get here? There are historical perspectives, media representation, and cultural influences. When it comes to historical perspectives, mental health stigma has roots in history. Centuries ago, people with mental illnesses were often ostracized or institutionalized. Even today, phrases like crazy or insane carry negative connotations, showing how deeply ingrained these attitudes are. And on the side of media representation, movies and TV shows often portray people with mental illnesses as dangerous or unpredictable, reinforcing harmful stereotypes. Think about how villains are often depicted as mad or psychotic. And when it comes to cultural influences, in some cultures, mental health issues are seen as a sign of weakness or something to hide. The cultural norms can make it even harder for people to seek help. Breaking the stigma. How do we actually break the stigmas that we talk about? There are some actions that you have to take: personal action and community actions. Under personal actions, number one thing that you have to do is language matters. Avoid using terms like crazy or psycho casually. Instead, use person-first language, such as a person with anxiety rather than an anxious person. Number two, educate yourself and others. Learn about mental health conditions and share accurate information to challenge myths and misconceptions. Number three, normalize seeking help. Talk openly about therapy or mental health check-ins. For example, you should say, I am feeling overwhelmed, so I schedule a session with my therapist. This shows that it's okay to seek help. And when it comes to community actions, you have to advocate for better policies. Support mental health initiatives in your workplace, school, or community. This would mean advocating for mental health days or improved insurance coverage. Number two, supportive environment. Create spaces where people feel safe sharing their struggles without fear of judgment. Ask open-ended questions like, how are you really feeling? And listen without trying to fix everything. With this, you can overcome some of the stigmas out there. And I want you to know that mental health is just as important as physical health. Yet, the stigma around it prevents so many people from getting the help they need. Together, we can create a world where no one feels ashamed to say, I need help. Let's continue the conversation. Share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. And if you have a story or question about mental health, reach out to me. Next week, we will dive into burnout, what it is, how to recognize it, and tips for regaining balance. Don't miss it. Thank you for listening to Mind Matters, Navigating Mental Health. Take care of yourselves and each other. Until next time.